What's going on, miners? The Veteran Miner here. I want to show you how to make these custom cables for your mining rig. So let's get into it. Alright, first off, here's the cables. Now, this is not going to be really an instruction video. If you guys are looking for like a step-by-step instruction video, let me know in the comments below and we can actually do a step-by-step instruction video, because I didn't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to show you guys how I make my custom cables for my mining rig. So real quick, I'm using 16 gauge wire, and as you can see, it's tinned. This wire is made for computers. It's made for computers at high wattages, and this is a 16 gauge. 18 gauge is basically the standard. The reason why I'm using 16 gauge is because, number one, they're very long. They're close to 2 feet long each cable. So that's one of the reasons why I'm using 16 gauge, and I'm also using the 16 gauge in conjunction with a Y splitter that's going to give you 2 8-pin connectors. So it's just about Ohm's law, how current works. That's my background, so this is the safest way, in my opinion, of doing it. 18 gauge with all the research would work, but it's just 16 gauge is better. So this is full copper tinned. So I don't know if you guys can see this here. You can actually see the color, hopefully, in the camera. The copper right there in the center, and it's tinned all around. So if you have to use a solder point, it's already tinned, so it's going to give you an excellent connection. So here are the pins here that they're already done, because I don't want to make this video too long. So you have the pins that are already put on here. I'm going to show you actually how to put a pin on. So these are 16 gauge pins right here. Hopefully you can see that. And what I do is I'll use the crimper, and I'll actually close it up a little bit. Hopefully you can see this. I'll close it up a little bit, release it, and now this is cut 1/8 of an inch. So it's not difficult. You can see how it goes into the connector right there. It's a little loose. We can actually do it a little bit more, because you need a perfect crimp. There we go. It'll actually hold the wire in exactly where you need it. And you can see here, now it's nice and tight. There's 2 crimps here that are going to happen at the same time. You got one crimp right there, then you have the other crimp is going to be for the wire itself, the sheathing. That's to hold the crimp in place. So you want to make sure that you don't have any pieces coming out or anything like that. So that's good. It's holding the wire. Now, make the cable straight. See, the pin is facing up. Take your finger, hold it straight, run it down, and you'll see that when you put on the other connector, see how that's not right? It won't come on straight. It'll actually look weird. It'll be all zigzagged all over the place. So now that's straight. Now we're ready to crimp it. See how I don't have to hold it? And then there's like an edge that you'll be able to see and feel right there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now there's 2 little pins sticking up all the way at the end. You don't want those to get crimped, and that's why it's seated correctly right there. That's it. You have a perfect crimp. There you go. So this is one end right here, and then what we're going to do is 2 wires. So we have the 6 pin that goes into the power supply, the server power supply, but we have to jump 2 more pins for 2 more grounds for the 8 pin to supply the grounds. So I solder them. You'll see a lot of connectors that they'll have a double wire coming out. If you look at your connections, you'll see 2 wires coming out on the ground for this piece right here. I have a soldering iron. I have the means of soldering and having a perfect connection. So that's just my opinion of what I'm going to do. So we're going to have to use 2 of these, solder, and then we could put the sheathing over it. So let's get the rest of these done, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, since all those are stripped, now this is going to be the next step. I want to show you the finished product here. This is what we have to do to get 2 of these. See that here. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure this here. What I'm going to do here is use my strippers. I'm going to make 2 lines right here, and I'm going to strip it back so we could actually do a solder connection. Like I said, 2 lines are going to be, you'll see it and it'll make a lot of sense once I actually put it together. Now the main thing here when we're doing this connection is that this connector side up, because that's how it's going to go into the pin. I want to actually make the hole here on top where the pin is. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use the helping hands so everything stays straight. Right side up. This is going to be the other connector here. I already stripped it back. Now when we do this, we want to make sure that the connector is faced up. It just goes in a lot easier. Now I'm going to crimp it together. Hope you guys can see it. Now I'm going to solder it. Put the soldering iron on. Let it heat up for a couple of seconds. Get some solder. See, I'm going to do this a certain way so you don't get a cold solder joint. So I'm going to tin my soldering iron. And then I'm actually going to heat up the whole wire. It'll make a perfect solder. As you can see, well, if my hand didn't move so much. Perfect. Shut the soldering iron off. I measured this out correctly, so if we ever needed to take that +2 pin off, we can. It'd be very easy to take off. If not being used, just a 6 pin to a 6 pin. So now, of course, now we have to insulate all this. So this is pre-cut here because I already have everything set, so the video wouldn't be astronomically long. I already have one piece here. This piece is going to go here, and then we're just going to cut a little piece to go right there. If the cable could stay on the table, that'd be great. So now, what we can actually do is, so they're not so frayed, we can actually use the heat gun, but I'm just going to show you what, just to get it. That's so it doesn't fray out, but actually this application, what we're doing right now, because we're putting 3 pieces in one, I actually want it to be a little frayed. And I'll explain in a couple of seconds here once we put this on. So I'm just pinching it because it can get stuck on the connector. All right. It's going to be extra here that we're going to have to cut down, and that's fine. But I want to show you guys how we do heat shrinkless method. So we're going to use the heat shrink. We're going to use it to melt the sleeving perfectly around. This is where the job gets a little dirty. And there's only a certain part of what you have to get it over. So in here, you do not want this to pass the second crimp connector on the inside, right about there. So we're going to put the heat shrink on there. And now this heat shrink is made to do this type of method. It can withstand a lot of heat, so therefore I'm able to melt this and then take the heat shrink off, and I'll show you. Alright, so here's my heat gun. I'm going to go around first. And then now you're going to see, hopefully in the camera, that it's going to start bubbling up. So as it starts bubbling up, it's just getting really, really, really hot. But that's what we need to do to melt the sleeving on, because we're taking a heat shrink off. So when I think that I got it where I want it, shut the heat gun off. This is where it gets a little messy. You can actually form it a tad bit, and that's where your fingers start getting a little bit of burnt heat shrink on your fingers. Now we can take the flush cutters right here, cut that off. This comes off. And that's how you have a perfect heat shrink connector right there. Perfect. Alright, moving on to the other end. As you can see here, I'm pinching the other side right here. And it's actually a little extra. I think I measured the whole line before I did this one because I was going to do just 6-pin to 6-pin. But this is fine, so we could just cut it down. Not a big deal. So you want to get this pretty tight so it looks very, very clean. Okay. That'll work. A little messy, but we'll get it. Okay. Then we have this guy here. Alright. Get another piece of heat shrink. I'm going to do the same exact thing. Gotta have some kind of, a little bit of patience to do this. But it's worth it. Pat this down. Perfect. Here we go. Alright, now let me get another piece here. There we go. Let me show you how I'll actually measure it and cut it right here. So I definitely want it to go into there. We wanted to get it on the connector, right? So I'll just cut back just a little bit farther back than what I need. And if it's too much, it's better than being not enough. Could always cut if it's too much. If it's not enough, you got to redo it all over again. There we go. So now, one more time, we're going to do the heat shrink on another connector. Last connector here. All right. Go. And you don't want to melt it all the way to the back, because then when you put them in the connectors, you'll see it. Kind of defeat the purpose of being heat shrinkless when it looks melted. So it's just a fine line right here. It takes practice. But if you have the patience, you should be able to do it. Reason why it looks like I'm rushing as soon as I do that is because it's still actually soft, and it's easy to get the heat shrink off. Alright, so now a little bit more heat shrink. Now this is going to go over the solder connection and all three of these lines, so it looks really, really good. So now, since this heat shrink is just about the right size, that goes right on here, and then I heat shrink it around, we can take these. Now be careful when you do this. It gets hot, and you don't want to melt it completely. Just want to get it hot enough that you can actually press the ends together, so when we try to get the heat shrink on, it won't be that bad. See how fast it melts. Just press it a little bit. Just makes life a little easier, that's all. There we go. Pretty happy with that. So I'm going to take the heat shrink. Bring around the opposite side where the two lines meet, because we have two pieces that we have to go over. Be easier than just to meet up with one piece itself, as you can see here. Right there. There we go. And now we'll measure this one here, so it's exactly the same. The one that's already done. That's perfect. Pull it over just a tad bit. There we go. Perfect. And you can see here, when you bend this over, it has a little extra. And I'll show you when I show you the whole finished product. Heat shrink this. Perfect. Alright, let's get the full cable that's done so we can explain it. Okay, so here's the PCIe cable completely done. We just gotta put one more piece here. Let's get these wires situated. There we go. There we go there. Perfect. Get the heat gun. Get this on there. Nice. All right. That's the finished product. So here, this is what I was explaining here on the two lines. These two extra cables are for a ground to make it an 8-pin. So those two grounds that I actually used to solder together to tap off. Typically you'll see 4 cables in here and just bridged off. So that's the 8-pin. This is the 6-pin. And, well, that could stay up. This is the GPU risers splitter. 8-pin to dual 8-pin. I want to let you guys know that you can go to gpurisers.com and get 10% off on your entire purchase through the coupon code TheVeteranMiner. I'm really excited that gpurisers.com is able to do that for us, for my channel, and utilize that code. So this is it here, guys. This is the full product. This is the finished product. I appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.